idea of, hey, I still have a certain amount of influence. So it doesn't matter if you're at the very top. I've worked with CEOs, COOs, but when you really deal with those individuals that are direct line people, those are the ones that have the rich stories, the rich history of what's taking place in the trenches. So you need poise, and you also need to remember that it's all about legacy. It doesn't matter if you're not in that top leadership spot, but it really does matter that you have a certain level of deference for leadership, and you're still able to influence people regardless of where you are in the organization.
Wow. See, these are things that hopefully today's young people and us adults who are not quite there yet will be aspiring to, sort of thing. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, do you feel that good leaders have to be able to empathize and put themselves in the shoes of someone else and think about how the other person may be feeling in a particular situation, again, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the main components of one of the courses that I teach and I have available called emotional intelligence. When you're able to demonstrate a certain level of empathy towards individuals, then they're going to react to you in a different way. If you think about what emotional intelligence tells us, it talks about the idea of self-reflection. It talks about the idea of self-regulation, where you can say, okay, I may be feeling some kind of way as the leader, but I'm not going to go off on people. I'm not going to do crazy stuff, you know. And the third component is empathy. And then the final component is the ability to have a high level of social skills. But if we just talk about the idea of empathy, think about this. If someone has just darkened the doors of your organization, they just walked in, their eyes are bloodshot red. Obviously, they've been crying. Their shoulders are slumped. They're trying to figure out, you know, whatever the task may be. If you're a leader and you're emotionally intelligent, which is going to serve you better? Going up to them saying, hey, pull it together, get it done, or saying, hey, I see something's wrong. Let's talk about it. Do you need to take some time? Do you need to maybe come back tomorrow? No docking of your pay or anything like that. Which one is going to create greater allegiance? Which one is going to create greater productivity? And I think I would say that person that's empathetic and saying, I care more about you, a la servant leadership, than I care about what we're going to do productivity-wise today.
Absolutely. I mean, again, you're just leading me so neatly in to the next question I was having, was basically, would it help the person who's aspiring to be the leader or who has been allocated as leader, because they're not just making a decision for themselves, as you've just said, the decision they're making is undoubtedly going to affect others as well. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because, you know, we talked about this previously, but when that leader, you know, I talk about exemplary leadership and some of the tenets of it. When that leader is modeling the way, then others are watching. They're watching. They're trying to figure out, does this person really do what they say? Do they really embody the vision and the mission of this organization? Or they're just a talking head. They really don't believe these things. People are watching that. So a leader cannot afford to really misstep in that area. They need to really follow through, be who they say they are, and also what the organization says that it is at the end of the day. Wow, fantastic. So I don't know, would you say that a person has to have a strong personality to be a leader? Because when they say strong, sometimes people misinterpret that. So is that a good word to use, or would you use another word? Well, I would say self-assured and confident. In some circles, you have to say strong. You spoke about it earlier, Avani, in sports context, in hyper macho context. Yeah, you have to be strong, or people are going to be challenging you all the time. But I think what happens, you have to figure out your context. If I am working for, I don't know, the Department of Transportation, and I go in there and say, hey, I love you guys, and come on, let's get together, we're probably going to end up fighting. It's going to be. But if I go in there, think he's crazy. Yeah. But if I go in there and I say, hey, fellas, you know, I need you to do this. I'm not for your nonsense. You know, I care about you guys, but I need you to do this. Then
that's going to receive more respect based upon what the research says and also what we talked about earlier. Now, let's switch context. If I go into a very white collar area and I'm trying to talk to these individuals about making proper financial decisions, if I'm talking to them about projecting certain quarterly profits, then I need to come at them in a very self-assured, confident way with a lot of data to back up what I'm talking about. So you have different contexts in which that leader has to navigate. And really, that's a situational leadership leader at that point. And that's a true theory, that leader will engage followers based upon what they see and also contextually what's taking place. And only a very adept leader can do those things.
Wow. So for young people out there, and again, teenagers, young people, teenagers and young adults, especially if they didn't have, as we were talking about earlier, a role model, and you were saying if they can find someone to emulate and to look up to, then they should try that. The positivity, obviously, the positive aspects. But maybe some children don't know what the positive aspect is. So again, they have to find that out and decide what they want to do. So how would you suggest to someone who is really kind of like, listen, I feel like I am this, but I don't know how to go about it? What would you say to a young kid or a young adult like that?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, first of all, we have to figure out where they are and what their context is, because if they have absolutely no role models around them, if they don't have any examples, then there's probably going to be even more of a challenge, and it's at that point that, things that I do going in and mentoring and helping individuals, they really are going to have to do the lion's share of demonstrating some of those positive aspects, because if they don't have any examples that are positive around them, then it's at that point that, really socially people should be able to come around them. There's really nothing that we can do if we don't know a problem exists at that point. But if they don't have any positive role models, if they don't have access to radio, TV, or anything like that, then it's at that point that we have to do our part in terms of coming around them, showing with intentionality, love and caring, but also affirmation that has responsibilities tied to it, those things as well. But those situations, really, those are tough. Those are tough situations if they don't have any positive role models around them. Even in my states of homelessness, I realized that, something has to be better. There has to be something out there. And that's the thing, Avani, that, I think those individuals, as long as they hold on and realize, internally, this is not the right way to go. I shouldn't be robbing. I shouldn't be stealing. I shouldn't be selling drugs. I shouldn't be fighting. I shouldn't be sleeping with all these girls, all this stuff. All that stuff has to be ignited on the inside. And then you sort of say, is there something better? Now, I don't know if I was supposed to share this, but I'm going to share it. My faith really serves as that catalyst for me. I knew that, I would hear about God. I would hear about having a relationship with him. And at the time, it served to create questions in me. And those questions really helped me to understand that, if God exists, then he doesn't want this for me. He doesn't want me to be out here seeing people getting stabbed on the street. He doesn't want me seeing prostitutes on the street. He doesn't want me as a child seeing all this stuff. So my reality is that I knew there was something greater. So that sort of pointed me in a way to do something different and not stay right where I was at the time.
Fantastic. Oh, wow. I hope that the listeners out there are really taking these things in, because I was so grateful for you to come on the show today and speak about not only your life and your successes, but also some of the things that you have seen along the way that also help you these days when you are speaking to the youngsters and the teenagers that you talk to. Now, I am going to try and attempt this pronunciation again. Phenomenology. Did I get it right? I know it's a form of psychology.
That was better.
Now, please tell us, I know it's a form of psychology, but please, can you elaborate a bit more about it? Because it's not something I hear much about.
Sure. Well,
please pronounce it for us as well.
You are awesome. I love your energy. Well, I think at the end of the day, when you start talking about psychology and just some of the aspects of the research, that's associated with it. When you talk about phenomenology, it really gives an idea of learned and lived experiences. And that's really, it's a very big word and a fancy word for learned and lived experiences, you know, but that doesn't sound as good when you're getting ready to write about it. So, you know, what it allowed me to do, and you do it all the time, every week you do it, you go in and you ask questions about people's situations. That's all phenomenology is. You are trying to figure out, okay, well, if that happened, how did that make you feel? And if you felt this way, what did it lead you to do? And based upon what it led you to do, now, what does it say about your life story? And so those are the things that are associated with phenomenology.
Fantastic. See, I tried to do my research, Dr. Jason. I did. And I wanted to know, but I'd never heard of it before. And I was like, wow. And I realized, yes, it's a form of psychology because you are a doctor, aren't you? So I thought, that type of doctor, PhD. And I thought, I must find out, what does that mean? Because some of the listeners are going to be thinking, what is that? You know, and I'd never heard of that particular type of psychology. So it was fascinating for me to want to know. But because you've written books on this, I know you're an authority. So I just want to know, did you always want to be an author? Was that one of the things you planned to do?
Wow. Now that's a really good question. I really thought that was out of my reach when I was younger, Avani. I shared with you some of those things related to illegitimate shame and lack of confidence and never knowing my father. There are some things that, hopefully our listeners will be able to glean this part of it. And I'm sure they will. There's a thing called the blessing. And essentially, a father gives his blessing to his children. He speaks life over them. He speaks the idea that you are going to do well. You are equipped to do well. I want what's best for you. I love you. And what happens when that has not taken place, or when it's been short-circuited, whether through divorce or promiscuity and you just having children or whatever it may be, that blessing doesn't happen. And so you have a child that really at that point is experiencing, in some ways, spiritual neglect, and they are at a place where they're not growing, they're not developing, and they're trying to figure out next steps. And so for me, I couldn't see those things that were tied to greatness when I had never seen them modeled in front of me. I didn't have a father to give me the blessing to lay hands on me, both in positive ways and to whoop my butt. So it was both of those things that I didn't have. And so that really stunts your growth. And that's why it's such an important thing to love your children, love your bride, love the things that you do, and be very intentional with it. So I went around the world to answer your question. No, I didn't know that I would write about these things. But once that fire was lit, Avani, there was no putting it out. There was no. So. Yeah,
so you were basically, once you, as you say, you decided you were going to do it, it was like a natural progression. It was just going to happen because you said earlier that you're passionate about writing and you can write for hours on end, So I'm curious to know, when did you get the idea to write your first book?
Yeah, when I went back to school, and started my PhD program, Avani, we had to write so much. We had to read so much. It was always something. I was always reading, and that part, that was intimidating. Now, I have to tell you this, even though I had my master's degree and I went through all that stuff, a PhD is a totally different animal. I mean, it really is so rigorous. It's so challenging. But once I began to write and write in a way that was more reflective, I began to understand that, okay, I need to share my thoughts. And there are ways to write things. Of course, you have style and format and all those different things. But I also had to realize that at the end of the day, I had to, at that point, get my thoughts out on paper. And if I felt a certain way, if I wanted a message that I wanted to communicate with the rest of the world, I had to do that through writing. And so my most recent book, and the one that's going to be launched here very soon, it's already on Amazon, 52 Ways to Tackle Leadership for Your Success, really is written in a way that it serves as a daily resource for people. Now, if you're not signed up on my blog, or if you're not getting my text messages, you don't have my app, the book allows me to come into your space and encourage you, motivate you, love on you, and give you a way to just walk this thing out called life on a daily basis. And that's really the way I fashioned it. And that's why I think the medium of writing is so important if done in a passionate way that's going to help others.
Wow, fantastic. I'm so happy you said that. Please let everyone know again where they can get your books from. And fantastic. I'd love to know.
Sure, absolutely. Well, the most recent one, 52 Ways to Tackle Leadership for Your Success, is available for pre-launch, but you can go to Amazon.com. And if you just put in Dr. Jason Carthen, some